Hi, Gil. Hi, Gil Ramirez. Welcome to 10 by 6. For the information of the viewers, Gil is a member of Weymouth Animal Rights, and he's here to talk about the proposed legislation that the Conservative government have announced today in relation to recognising animals as sentient beings, which for many is a long time coming. So what Gil is going to do is he's going to talk us through the legislation and what he perceives that will offer in terms of animal rights, and then we'll move on to the things that the government haven't mentioned and haven't identified, and maybe how they should progress into the future. So Gil, if you could just give us a summary of how you perceive the announcement today.
Okay, I mean, how I perceived the bill as it came through. I mean, on first reading, it's pretty it's around live exports and basically pets, domesticated animals, as in chipping of cats, and the out of control dogs, on land. Dog fighting, poisoning, causing unnecessary suffering to an animal. To me, it is definitely designed, specifically designed around pets, our dogs and cats, apart from obviously the live exports, which has been a long time coming and long campaigned for. And basically, set out a legislation really around extending sentencing for animal cruelty, and it's basically about the animals being sentient beings, really, that they have feelings and emotions. That I think, for me, that's the main thing that stands out in this legislation. Definitely.
Excellent. Yeah, cool, thank you. I mean, one of the things they're looking to ban is like the import of ivory, import of shark fins. Obviously, it's about pummeling down on hair coursing as well, and other things as well in terms of foie gras, which obviously is something that's it's been a long time coming, because the idea of force feeding geese in order to make their liver enlarged, and the agony that they must be in. I mean, people have been campaigning this since I was a child.
Yeah, I mean, it's decades.
And it's been
decades.
Yeah, and it's the cruelty.
Yeah,
and it's a luxury item as well, isn't it? It's not something that we need.
No, I mean, it's like veal. Veal was another one that was campaigned against for decades and decades. And again, live export. I mean, people have died campaigning against live exports. These are not new protests or campaigns, or these are not new points that for animal welfare. These have been going on for decades, and again, it's something that I've been questioning with this whole legislation. That there's a part of me that almost feels like the Tory government have been forced into putting this in because of the Lisbon Treaty, the Article 13, and the withdrawal agreement, that with animals were already seen as sentient beings as part of the EU. And I think it wasn't actually included in the withdrawal agreement until now. I think there's a part of me that is a bit of a vote winner. It's a bit of a good thing to do as a vote thing. And I think there's a little bit of a forced hand as well as part of the withdrawal agreement anyway. When you look at the legislation, it's very fluffy. It's very vote winning, because it doesn't actually include so many things. If we're going to say that, if the government is going to say that animals are sentient, it should include all animals, but it doesn't. It doesn't go far enough at all.
That was the thing that struck me, Gil. Once you recognise that that animals are sentient beings, in other words, they equate to humans, then surely animals have to be treated in exactly the same way as humans. And yet you look at it and you think, well, they're still going to be in the abattoir, they're still going to be end up in the supermarkets, they're still going to be pumped full of goodness knows what. And they're not getting rid of the poultry cages.
No.
This. I mean, I'll pass it over to you because you know so much more obviously than I do. But what would you have, in the ideal world, what would you like to have seen this legislation? Forget it's introduced by Conservative government, so it's always going to be limited. But in an ideal world, what would you like to have seen?
Well, I'd like to have seen it include vivisection. I'd like to see it include proper animal welfare, not and include not just just not things that don't make a profit like hair coursing or dog fighting, that, but this legislation is not based on any welfare that includes profit making. So the pharmaceuticals, hunting, it says about hair coursing, it doesn't say anything about beagle packs at all, that hunt hares. It seems to be everything that doesn't include profit making. If it includes a profit, if animal welfare involves profit, then it's not included in this bill at all. And that I think that's the obvious thing that is screaming out, is it's not hitting animal welfare where it should be as well. It's not going for animal welfare if it includes profits. Vivisection, pharmaceuticals. It doesn't say anything about vivisection at all. It says, I mean, one of the laughable things, a part of it that I first read was, carrying out non-exempted mutilation. Well, what does that mean? Non-exempted, carrying out a non-exempted mutilation. So there's exemptions. You can mutilate an animal if blah blah blah. It complies with this exemption. Well, the exemption is going to be if it makes a profit. You can mutilate an animal then if it's for your profit, basically. I mean, to me, carrying out a non-exempted mutilation, what even is that? Is that a sentient being or a non-sentient being we're talking about here? Do you know what I mean? It's a laughable piece of legislation, that. And it's very similar to the Hunting Act. Sounds good on paper, but it's full of exemptions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get your point you mentioned earlier about being a vote winner, because you feel that, for example, the banning of bringing in trophy hunting and ivory into the country is probably a reflection of the way in which people respond on social media when they see a photograph of a trophy hunter, and the amount of anger and upset. So I can see where you're coming from in terms of being a sort of populist appeal to make the government look more humane and caring. But like you say, there seems to be so many holes in the legislation or the different bills that they're going to be putting in front of Parliament. And most people, as you say, most people won't pick up on it.
No.
So not much will actually change.
No, not really. I mean, the legislation has already been in place in the EU anyway. So, I mean, basically, they've just pulled that out and turned it and twisted it and made exemptions, really. I mean, it's just full of exemptions in the sense that if it includes making money, if it includes profit, then really the whole thing doesn't mean anything. It doesn't include farm animals, for example. It doesn't include working dogs, as in hunting dogs. Do you know what I mean? It's saying about, involvement in animal fight, and biting, causing unnecessarily suffering to an animal. But that doesn't include fox hunting. It doesn't include hunting, shooting, so are these animals not sentient in this legislation?
I know we were up at Abbotsbury Swanery on Sunday, and there wasn't many people there at all, but there was lots of pheasants walking around. And you look at these beautiful birds, and then you think what they do to them in all the upper classes in terms of rearing them, and then people going around making loud noises to get them out of the trees, and then people popping off guns left, right, and centre for goodness knows how long. them falling out of the sky. These beautiful creatures, just so they can have a bit of exhilaration, a bit of fun.
It's sport, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah. Well, is it sport though? That's the thing as well, is it? It's a psychopath sport for me.
yeah, it's a blood sport. You know, they class it as a sport, you know, as a, you know, but it's not a sport. It's fattening up these animals so they can't fly anyway. So they're easy targets for the rich to have a bit of fun killing something. You know, at the end of the day, these animals are not classed as sentient beings in this legislation
No.
because they're not included. It's a
Okay.
pick and choose. If it means money, if it means profit, they're not included.
So thank you, Gail. So I think our general conclusion then from today's announcement is that neither of us are particularly impressed, but they have taken a step. They've just taken probably 99 steps less than they perhaps should have done.
I mean, I think the thing is, with the legislation saying sentient, it is something we as an animal rights group can now work on.
Brilliant, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a good hopeful ending.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Gil, for coming on to 10 by 6. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me.